Greetings, this is Comrade Net, Cleric of Public Relations for the Bundist Movement. First of all, let me say I wish everyone a wonderful Purim. And I'm taking this opportunity to speak about something concerning Purim. In the book of Esther, because the king could not reverse his edict, and his edict was that the Jewish people were all to be annihilated because Lord Haman had tricked the king into signing such an edict. He then ruled that if the Jewish people were attacked, they should defend themselves. This brings some things to mind, one of them being that the Islamic Republic of Iran continues in the ancient Persian tradition of hospitality for the Jewish people. Although if you check out Western media, you will be convinced of quite literally the opposite of this fact. And that dives into the next thing. So this is a video recently put out by Abraham Weisfeld, PhD, the chairman of the Revolution for the Bundist Movement. Dr. Abraham Weisfeld has resurrected the Bund in one of the ways that, one of the things that should be understood is the current Bund is the Jewish Socialist Bund, not the Jewish Labor Bund. The Jewish Labor Bund is pretty much defunct. It had its time. It did a lot of good. Although after World War II, it started to go very, very stagnant more and more and more. But the Jewish Socialist Bund, while it has not done nearly as much as the old Jewish Labor Bund had been doing, I argue that it's a lot more advanced. But this next video is a presentation recently put out by Dr. Weisfeld on the matters of self-defense. It's also striking because this is a lesson he had tried to teach me a couple times. Eventually it took, but it's the basic way I can summarize it is liberation by any means necessary does not necessarily mean liberation by all means necessary. And he puts out the points, the principal Bundism points on proper self-defense. Please do enjoy, and after this, I'll give a little bit, of some afterthought.
Well, this is Dr. Abraham Weisfeld here, speaking to really test out a new microphone here. But I was thinking that I might as well, register an argumentation, a deductive argumentation here, which takes a moment to record, which is very pertinent to the current conditions of the genocide in Gaza, because the defense of the Palestinians is made with arguments that are at times faulty and have no effect, and therefore waste the energy that's put into them because of a contradiction which is not apparent. There's a couple of such cases. One is the ambiguity of from a river to the sea, and which in itself is an endorsement of a one-state solution, which is basically the conception encouraged by a current of thought which emanates from an obsolete political current, of populist and ex-communist party cadres who argue for a liberal notion of the nation, of the state, which is a pluralist and which doesn't exist anymore anywhere in the world, actually, and which existed in Europe for a while, when there was a certain birth of nation states there in 1648. However, this is not 1648. And a one-state solution is not a solution. Okay, two-state solution is not a solution either, but the recognition of Palestine in the face of Israel and various fora is. Now, the fault that I wish to address is the one that makes reference to armed struggle. There is a provision in international law for the right of national self-determination, which includes the right of resistance, both peacefully and with armed resistance. Armed resistance is not defined thereafter. It's just the two words that are mentioned in this international law. The task at hand is to define what is armed resistance. The first notion of armed resistance that I know of is that of the Jewish Bund, because my mother's involvement with the Jewish resistance against the Nazi occupation, particularly in Russia and previously in Poland in the Warsaw Ghetto. So this code of military conduct by the Jewish Bund, which included my mother's brother, who was a partisan, was that it is legitimate, considered legitimate, both in what should be international law or military code of a reciprocal nature, and also in Judaic law, is that the officers of an invading army are the first target to be taken out. Next is the soldiers who are engaged in offensive operations and killing people. And three, informers who kill people as well by denouncing them. For gain. Yes, because prosperity is the purpose of life. Okay, so the argument of armed struggle is faulty because it is not reciprocal and it is not limited. First of all, any national liberation struggle could claim such a right, irrespective of what it is doing at the moment, right? So if a given group, given people, a given nation are an oppressed nation and conduct a resistance movement for the national liberation of its people, are justified to use armed struggle, yes or no? Okay, if you say yes, then in principle, we're discussing this, not in terms of limitations or not, but in principle, we have to consider that this is a right of armed struggle which can be conducted against anybody. Like it's not specified, against whom it can be conducted, So, the Zionists took this, ball and ran with it, and claimed to be a national liberation movement, which is doubtful. But the national liberation of the Jewish people was necessary, and they claimed, to be representative of the national liberation of the Jewish people who had just or were undergoing a Holocaust by the Nazis for no good reason. So, the armed struggle then, was conducted by the Zionists, not against, the Nazis. No, the partisans were Pluto, mostly, the Bundes and the Zionists who had no other choice, but to resort to direct action in self-defense. But it was not a Zionist strategy. Zionist strategy was to run away and hide and take over somebody else's country because they had a right to national self-determination. That is the Jewish people. And the Zionists claimed to be representative of the Jewish people. So they claimed this right of the Jewish people in their own name and claimed it to be the leadership and the vanguard of the Jewish people in doing so. in the face of, the assimilationist Jewish population, which went and joined, whatever, Communist Party, Trotskyist parties, or whatever, and gave up their identity. So the Zionists claimed to be representative of the Jewish people after the Holocaust because the Jewish Bund, which were the vanguard and the anti-fascist resistance of the Jewish people, didn't exist any longer, except for some survivors like my mother and me. So the Zionists claimed, the representative of the Jewish people, national right to self-determination and all that, verbiage, and the right to armed struggle. Against whom? Against the Palestinians. Oh, why? Because the Palestinians were in the way of the national liberation of the Jewish people, who were claiming a sovereign right, to control the land of what was previously known as Israel, even though the state is not considered to be Israel in Judaism, because Israel is considered to be the name of the Jewish people as a whole and not a state, not a territory. Okay, in Hebrew this is Hamadina Tvelo Israel. Okay, the state is not Israel. And when they say Israel, Am Yisrael Chai, they don't know what they're talking about, because that means the belonging to the Jewish people. Doesn't mean the state, because the state didn't exist all the time, only existed, for 80 years previously and 75 years this time. So, Jewish people existed throughout, all the time, so, Israel must be referring to the Jewish people, it's a matter of definition. So, the Zionists, took over this, right in the armed struggle now that, they're using against Palestinians. When the Palestinians resist, oh, well, they're only resistance because they're Nazis, and therefore it is required to obliterate them. Because, the right of armed self-determination is not limited. It's not defined, with any sort of, limitation. Now, when Malcolm X referred to, the right of armed struggle, he used the phrase, by all means necessary. But he also stated, by all means necessary, but not necessarily by all means. It depends on the context and the need. Now, the need, for genocide of the Palestinians in Gaza is not apparent. What happened on October the 7th was not a genocidal campaign, but yet the horror stories that are propagated and still are propagated of various crimes against humanity that are genocidal or as such in nature are generally not true, according to the even most current study conducted by Al Jazeera in the documentary called October the 7th. So the horror stories, the campaign of mass rapes is not verified by any agency, certainly not the Israel police. The initial story of 40 beheaded babies and burnt is not true either. There are various body parts left over that were burned under tank fire that may have been the size of babies, but they weren't babies. That was delusionary. The documentary, though, does account, and use the body cam, footage of various Hamas fighters showing that there was a brutal campaign of killing of civilians, especially at the Nova Festival, which they tumbled upon. And with all of the fleeing Israelis, who came there in such a naive fashion, even though they're the soldiers' age, they come there without even their arms. And then even then, when the border police, showed up, 57 or 53, depending on the account, ended up being killed because they were overwhelmed. The number of Palestinian fighters that invaded was 1,200. And along the border, they eliminated, the entire military cordon, took, a lot of, military hostages that weren't resisting, fighting back. And so they became hostages. They were captured before they could fight back or whatever, including the generals and including the general, of the whole Gaza brigade are hostage. And right now, up to now, they still are, so if they haven't been bombed. So the limitations, like by all means necessary, but not necessarily by all means, So how do you determine this dichotomy? How do you determine this dialectic? Well, that's to be discussed, isn't it? And as I mentioned, there is the Jewish Bundescode of military engagement, which is officers, soldiers, and deadly informers. And that's it. No civilians allowed. Okay? Waiting to do the next Here and Now session today with Steve Struggle. This is Dr. Abraham Weisfeld here saying bye.
Shortly after this video you just saw, there was another video put out by Dr. Abraham Weisfeld and Steve Struggle, who had been part of the original Black Panther Party. I would like to say that there's a link in the description below, which will bring everybody to the previous video on this channel. It goes over the complicated nuances concerning the differences between somebody who's Jewish and somebody who's not really Jewish necessarily, but who has Jewishness. And I do hope that within the because we're having these meetings within the Vanguard Circle. The current Vanguard Circle, like I said in the previous video, is what I would call more of an organic Vanguard Circle. So it's not going to be necessarily so rigid as the program which me and Donna Newman had come up with in the past. However, I came up with variations of the Vanguard Circle, and that is because I had concluded that there are different ways to do a Vanguard Circle. The current Vanguard Circle is working out fine. So, while I do think that all understandings of the Vanguard Circle should be promoted, in fact, that's one of the videos that I'm working on currently. While there should be, while it should be known how it was done before and the various ways that, it could possibly be done, the fact that there's variations, meaning that there is no one way to do it, and the way that we're doing it currently is fine. This is so in the link in the description below is the previous video from this channel, and I put it below in the description here because in case somebody's picking up this video on this feed, it would be necessary, you may not necessarily, unless you go straight to the channel, find the video. So this way you can just go straight to the video after watching this video if you have not seen it. But somebody that belongs in the Vanguard Circle with us is Abraham Schultz. Another person that belongs in the Vanguard Circle is Eric Grotsky. I think that's his name. Eric Grotsky is a Muslim with Jewishness. See, he's a Muslim who considers himself Jewish due to some background with his father. I never really got a chance to talk to this person. It was really just through, Dr. Weisfeld that I had any communication. But Eric should be in the Vanguard Circle with us. As he, and that is because if a Muslim is going to say that he's Jewish, this is actually a sign of Jewishness with the Muslim. Therefore, because the boon particularly does deal with Jewishness, he should be involved. Eric should be in the Bundist, he should be in the Bundist Vanguard Circle. Because, as the video, which is linked in the description below, expresses, those Gentiles with Jewishness should be in the Bund. Unfortunately, the rabbis, while they do focus on Judaism, which for Jewish people, any Jewish individuals, that is going to be a lot more essential than Jewishness. Jewishness still exists for Jewish people, and Jewishness rubs off on non-Jewish people, typically because of some kind of relation you have to the Jewish nation. This applies to Mark Foster. This applies to quite a few Muslims with Jewishness. It also applies to certain Christians with Jewishness. However, when it comes to the Christians, we are much more selective on who would be put into the Bund. That's another reason why the video below is necessary to watch, because Dr. Weisfeld had actually identified which Christians could be part of this and which ones couldn't be. And everyone he identifies, including the Assyrians and the Armenians, could easily fall into this category. So please be able to please check out the description and click on the link below after watching this video if you have not watched the previous video. Anyway, I'm now going to just let this go to the next video by Dr. Abram Weisfeld, where it's the latest Here and Now episode, which has Steve Struggle from the original Black Panther Party. Happy Purim, everyone. Free Palestine.
This is Here and Now, and here we go. Where are we going to? Is this another war on top of a war on top of a war, or what? What is going on?
That's for sure. That's for sure.
I haven't heard much about what's happening in Moscow. Do you hear, what this
Well, yeah,
attack on Moscow is all about?
yes, I can give you a pretty updated view. I've been listening to it most of the night. Yesterday afternoon, I'm recording on Saturday, the 23rd of March. So yesterday, the 22nd of March, in the evening, there was a concert in Krasnogorsk, which is in the Russian suburb near Moscow. Four terrorists entered the building and just gunning people down like dogs. That's how it was. Just very similar to how Al-Shabaab went to the Westfield Shopping Center in Nairobi. Just walked in and started killing people. There's videos of it. Yeah. It's just kind of like, hey, let's kill somebody. And they obviously were very prepared to even burn the building down because they had some incendiary devices, and they actually caught the building on fire. So this is like an event center where people have parties and concerts, and it was a concert planned, and so they knew people were going to be there. So four people participated in the mass murder. They actually escaped by car and were on their way to Ukraine. And they were
that's a good indication of where they came from.
And they were caught in the Mishev area near the border. Four have been detained, and 11 in total. And 11 others have been detained. Currently, the death toll is about 120 dead, hundreds more wounded. A lot of things are going on in that area right now as far as support, cab rides, security has been taken up a little bit. So that's what I know. That one person was interrogated, and the video was shown on Ria Novosti, and he claimed, true or not, that he came in from Turkey and was paid $5,000. This is what this one person has said. Who knows if that's true or not? That's all I can tell you. But it was definitely a terrorist attack. I expected these attacks to have occurred because we had the daughter of Dugin murdered in Moscow. Her car was blown up. You had the military blogger, during a book reading in St. Petersburg. The event was blown up. You have the head of the secret police in Ukraine, and plus there was an article a few weeks ago in the New York Times talking about how the CIA has been working secretly in Ukraine for decades to wage war against Russia. So clearly, whoever carried out the event knew the lay of the land well enough to come in, carry it out, and escape. They have been detained. Many people have been murdered. They're dead. The injured are there. And it was a very tragic event, but I have no knowledge of this. The U.S. 2 weeks ago gave a warning to Americans to avoid certain situations. So
Mm.
clearly, Americans and the British knew about it or knew what was going to
Mm.
happen.
Mm.
But I have expected this
Mm.
because the Ukrainians don't have any way of winning militarily, so
Mm.
they have to resort to terrorism.
Mm.
So whether or not the Ukrainian government itself was the organizer of it, they were trying to escape to Ukraine, and more than likely had a way to get in. If they didn't have a way to get in, they would be going for the border. So that was their escape route, and we'll just see how things proceed from here. That's all I can say right now.
Mm. This reminds me of the reports that I heard previously about the chemical and biological warfare labs that were set up by the CIA on Ukrainian territory because it was illegal on American territory.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
So that might be happening as well. Wow. Yes, I think this campaign, the Russian special military operation for the denazification of the Ukraine is in order. I don't think they should go over the Dnieper River, but I think that where they can find the sites, military sites within Ukraine proper, then they should go after that for sure. Even though, on the ground, the Donbass region doesn't go beyond the Danube River there, so that's sufficient. And they don't have a mandate, to go any further than that either. But the recent elections that took place, Putin, he got, quite a mandate, in those elections. And in both Lugansk and Donetsk, he got 92 and 94% of the vote.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Hmm.
those people wanted to be out of Ukraine and part of Russia. So since they're in Russia now, they're going to vote very heavily in favor of the current administration. That really is to be expected.
And I think it was a fair election because for identification purposes, Ukrainian passports were accepted in addition to Russian passports. So
Nice.
there was no discrimination as to who a potential voter might be. So
Wouldn't have it.
that's
It would happen. Well, in the United States, you have to show passport to vote, but it's very good to see that everyone had a chance to vote and participate. This is me politically. I'm not saying what people should or shouldn't do, but I'll be damned if I got to have an international observer in my country looking at elections when nobody comes to the United States to look at elections. But that's just me. That's me talking about how I see it. Everybody got their own way of dealing with stuff. But I don't think it's right that you got to have it. Look, you choose to have it, somebody watching your vote, but can't nobody watch your vote.
Hey.
Hey, hey,
I volunteer to be an observer in the American election and next
uh,
American presidential election. I'll come
I'm
and
sure,
check it out, for you. No problem.
they probably stop you at the border. You ain't getting in here.
Oh
Why? I
yeah, they would
don't know who
detain me
you
at the border
are.
for 30
I
days as
I
well.
saw
Yeah.
your picture. I saw your picture. Get out of here, buddy. Yeah,
Oh
So
wow.
that's it. It's been the news on the internet has been interesting. Um, and actually, to be very fair, if it wasn't for the internet, we wouldn't know anything about this.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a story that clearly the internet has been the source of information, not the New
Hmm.
York Times, not the
Yeah.
Washington Post. No, the internet, be it on Telegram or just YouTube or
Hmm.
some other platform. Amazing.
And now it's on here now. Here we are.
So here we are. It's right. Here we are on
Yeah.
the internet, still getting the word out. So I hope
Yeah.
everybody please will hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and
Yeah.
share this video far and wide so we can have more people watching and tuning in and participating in this conversation.
Yeah. Um, uh, Today, before we got started, I did a recording of my own just to test out the new microphone here, and I elaborated a whole sort of theorem basically of what armed struggle is and how one can evaluate what the armed struggle by Hamas was like according to the documentary put out by Al Jazeera on October the 7th. And I did a sort of a critique of Hamas for having taken down the civilians at the Nova Rave Festival, but discounted the horror stories and put forward the Jewish Bundes military code to note that basically what Hamas was doing was quite legal in terms of armed struggle. Ethics and international law, because according to even the Jewish Bund in resistance against the Nazi occupation, like my mother's brother, first you take down the officers who are given the orders, then you take down the soldiers who are carrying out the orders, and then you take down the informers who are killing people by denunciation. And that's it, like the rest of the civilians, no matter what they think or whatever, what relationship they have to any of the military, are not considered to be military targets. So that's why, there is a difference with the practice of the Hamas fighters. But, like what I saw in that documentary, these Hamas fighters, they had no direction. There was no sort of, either a chain of command or council, no sort of, sit down, strategy talk, nothing, they're just sort of, wandering around in the kibbutzim, in the villages there, wondering what to do next. Because they took down the military within 1 hour. They got to the kibbutzim in the on the old Palestinian land of 1947, and they got there, and they could do, like what do they want? But they didn't know what to do. Only, to take hostages, yes, but they didn't have, that many vehicles, so they had to confiscate the vehicles of the kibbutzim, tractors and wagons, and start taking people, back, in these little sort of mini tractors, going at 5 miles an hour or something like that. Incredible, and then, even after that, trying to get back to Gaza, then all, these civilians are flooding across the fence, into the in the kibbutzim, to loot and to take hostages themselves. Civilians were taking, Israeli civilians hostage on their mini bikes, with 3 people on a mini bike, trying to make it back, to Gaza, with a helicopter chasing them, like shooting them down, like insects, together with the hostages, of course. Incredible scene, complete anarchy.
Where did you see this?
Al Jazeera. They have this documentary now, an hour-long documentary that they got some
I
new footage from. Oh,
we
it's
have
incredible, to see the,
this.
because they took the body cam videos, like I have a body cam at the vigil tomorrow. They had body cams too, I don't know where they got them from, maybe China, like I did. But, they had these, good videos, like high definition, colored videos, of what the Hamas fighters were doing, by their own body cams, because they lost the body cams after they were killed, of course. So that's how they got the body cams, and they were made available to Al Jazeera.
This is a must see then. This is a must see. This is must see.
Yeah.
We must see. The reason why I'm saying this is, first of all, I just want to commend you for doing the research, Abraham, on what the military code of conduct should be. Because I think it's important, because all of our movements at one time or another are going to have a military component. Whether we advocate it or not, it's going to happen. And
what we advocate to others on how to conduct themselves in a principled fashion.
Now, Mao Zedong had this in the little red book, the 10 points of attention and the three main points of discipline. So I know that growing up, when I read that book, that's the first time I had seen such statements. So it's important to, whether you have guidance on what to do afterwards or not, for the soldiers and the leadership to know, here's what we're going to do, here's what we're not going to do, and make that very clear. I mean, if, say, for example, they had to get cars, well, they had to get the cars from somebody. You couldn't say, man, just say, may I have the keys, please? No, there's nothing. No. So you may have to use some force to get the keys. Okay, I mean, I'm gonna say, be realistic, like the tractor. Here's the tractor. I dial someone. Somebody man, here, man, take the tractor, get out of here.
Oh, that's no problem. You know, that's not even an act of violence. Just a matter of
Yeah,
confiscation there. Yeah.
right. There may have to be some confiscation, and confiscation in those situations is best done by, we need this.
Yeah.
Now you may have to use the means to get it, but hopefully you have to take nobody's life to get it.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. But I really would like to see this video, and I hope you can. I don't know if you're going to share it in the chat or in the description below, but I definitely would like to get it from you or know where I can find it. Yeah.
Okay, I'll go get the link and I'll put it in all the places. Yeah, for
Good,
sure.
good.
Because it's very necessary to find, what armed struggle is, because the Zionists, start off, with the verbiage being, popular front, with the national bourgeoisie, the national liberation movement, and they claimed the right of armed struggle. Okay, but they, the way they, like used armed struggle, first of all, they weren't, into national liberation. They were into national suppression of the Palestinians. They weren't fighting so much against the British as they were against the Palestinians. So it's
Of
a total
course,
sort of,
yes.
inversion of, the claim that they're making. But nonetheless, what they're doing now is they're taking out people for a thought crime because they think that they're Palestinians and so they don't deserve to live, because they can't tolerate anybody who thinks that they're a Palestinian. Because, in Israel, you're not allowed to use the word Palestinian. You can only talk about the Arabs. Just talk about the Palestinians, right away, you're a traitor. That's, like about it.
That just shows you that Israel is a country that if anybody is concerned with human rights, social justice, peace, intelligent discourse, you really have to watch your step if you live there. Because if I can't have a discussion about a topic, then the revolution that people fought for, it wasn't worth it. Even though you might not like the topic, I can have a discussion about the topic, and we can say, okay, that's social taboo in our country. Okay, fine, but yeah, I've heard that a lot from Zionist Israelis in Israel, in Palestine. Well, there are no Palestinians because there is no Palestine. Well, that means that there are no African Americans because there is no African America.
Yeah.
Right? That's what you're saying.
Yeah, and it also means there's no Jewish people because there wasn't a state before.
Yeah. So the whole thing that the entire argument these folks make, it not only boggles the mind, it shows the warped philosophy and the civilization that they are part of is very demented and chauvinistic and very, very militaristic.
Yeah.
They will simply wipe out. They'll wipe you out. They have no
Spartan, very
problem.
Spartan state-like mentality, like
Yeah,
upbringing,
yeah.
the militaristic framework. All
Very,
the
very
educational
good.
system is geared,
Yes,
to militarism.
yes,
And then they can't
yeah,
even go to university without going to the military first, like it's,
yeah.
yeah.
It's very Spartan. That Spartan kind of that Spartan conduct. It's I can see a society needing that at certain times. But if you're or if you're organized around that, how do you allow for the body politic to exist and to diversify its views so that society can become stronger? Israel's having that problem now, I think. And I'm not an expert in Israel anyway. But what they're going through now, what they're doing now is going to change the entire fabric of their thinking towards mass murder, towards the oppression of Palestinians and non-Israeli people. It's rather sadistic, the acts they're carrying out. And when you have a society in which sadism and mass violence is accepted and becomes part of the DNA, that's a problem world. People like that can't fit in the world too well, I don't think. Well, maybe I'm wrong about this. Anyway.
It's also can be sort of considered in terms of mentality, in terms of the psychological makeup of the body politic there, because it's a common body politic, and it's a mass mentality that they have, which is delusional. First of all, the military are trained and taught and think that they are defending the Jewish people, that that's their purpose. And they're defending the Jewish people by oppressing the Palestinian people. And they consider the Palestinians, they're taught that the Palestinians are a genocidal people who are trying to wipe out the Jewish people. And so therefore, it's permissible to wipe them out in order to prevent the wiping out of the Jewish people, okay? Now, since their intention, stated intention, is to wipe out the Palestinian people, then by reciprocity, the Palestinians have the right to consider that they are obliged to wipe out the Jewish Israeli population before they get wiped out themselves. So, like they have created the conditions, for their own, elimination, because they adopted that kind of methodology. The methodology itself, is irrational, in and of itself, together with the delusions that they cultivate in order to justify the call for genocide of the Palestinians to begin with. So it's, an incredibly crazy situation.
And by creating the ideology that the Palestinians are this alien people who are intent on destroying them, then the Jewish state, the Israeli state, the Zionist state creates the conditions where they are creating their own enemies by their own ideology.
Yes, and according to their own logic, they're creating the justification for their own elimination. Right. So this demonstrates that their own sort of logic, their own methodology is faulty, to say the least. If it leads to mutual self-destruction, mutual elimination, that's all that kind of methodology leads to.
But Abraham, you just said something, mutual destruction, back in the old, not too far long ago, 50 years ago, even the Soviet Union, the United States, understood that once the war starts, it's over.
Right? Yeah. They call it MAD, mutually assured destruction.
Once it starts, it's over.
Yeah.
So we don't want to start.
Yeah.
The Israelis don't have that view, and that's the danger of that view. They
Yeah,
don't care about the war because you don't know. I don't know what Hamas has in its last ditch treasure chest of weapons. No, you don't. We don't have any idea. Whatever. And neither do we know what Israel has. What we do, they have nuclear weapons. They have nuclear weapons. They have nuclear weapons. No doubt about it. I don't have to have evidence. I just have evidence by just investigation. So both sides in this conflict, because it's being fought by the Israeli side on a deep suspicion and animus toward Palestinians, see, that doesn't even allow for negotiations. No, it doesn't. That doesn't allow for dialogue.
Yeah.
Not real dialogue. So, that's why this situation will probably never come to a truce. And because it's just like the basis for the aggression denies those being aggressed the right to be considered equal. And it's in many ways, it's like, it's just another form of racism, except you have a state that's carrying out the racism.
That's the definition of racism right then and there. Racism is denying the right to exist.
Yeah. And since the Israeli Zionist state has this approach has this belief, this policy, this practice towards Palestinians, unfortunately, it prevents peace from occurring, and that's the danger. Look at what's happening now in Gaza.
That's the Zionist state. They don't want peace. That's not why it exists. That's not the purpose of the Zionist state. No.
Yeah, no. Is right. They don't want peace, and that's why the situation now is so dire. That's why people are dying. That's why people don't have a hospital to go to. That's why there's no food, because they don't want peace. They want destruction.
Well, if you look at it, the history of it, like the Zionists, military forces have attacked repeatedly.
Oh, always.
1947 to 1949.
Always.
1956, they attacked the Suez Canal, together with France and Britain. 1967, they attacked Jordan and took over the West Bank and pieces of Syria and Lebanon. Lebanon, they attacked, up to the Litani River. Then they attacked again, right up into Beirut, and massacred Sabra Shatila. Now they've attacked Gaza, Gaza,
And
but
the
they've been
thing
forced
about
to
that,
retreat. When they have retreated, like from the Sinai, they've been forced to do so because 1973, they nearly lost that war there. So in order to save the state, they had to, concede, the territory back to Egypt. Otherwise, they wouldn't have done so. Yeah.
but when you have a military, okay, I am not against tactically throwing the first blow. I'm not against that tactically. That might be the strategy I choose in a particular war.
Well, that's what Hamas did. Yeah. This time, like.
But I'm saying that if that is the basis, if you have a racist chauvinist view as Israel toward the Palestinians and toward their existence as a people, and your view is always throw the first blow, then you pretty much are an aggressor. You don't believe there's any place for non-aggressive behavior of your society, and that's what makes you so dangerous and unpredictable. There's nothing. That's what I've always said about the Zionist state, and I hope no one takes this the wrong way. There's nothing that they won't do.
Yeah, yeah.
That's my view. And not because I don't like them. It's just nothing that they and the collective West behind them as their allies.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's something they may not be one. Let's look at what's happening in Moscow right now. My view is the U.S. and Britain would rather not be connected officially to this event.
Yeah.
Not officially. That's war. If you're officially connected, it's time we have to go to war. That's it. We have to go to war. So they rather have a more than an arm's length connection. They may give a nod and a wink. They've already said that the guns that were used were imported from another country, which is always a sign that they were not locally purchased. So they would prefer. I do think it's in the interest of destabilizing Russia that the U.S. and Britain would support it, or if they knew about it, wouldn't block it. But if you're always having the aggressor approach, dude, people are not going to give you a second. People are not going to give you a second chance when they get the chance, like Hamas, get the chance to just go into attack because they know what you do. They'll catch you, when you're sitting on the toilet or perhaps reading a book inside the park.
Or tripping on ecstasy at a rave festival.
Yeah, what I'm saying, they will adopt your approach because of what you've done. That's why you have to be a nation that's going to be peaceful, have good connections, or communities going to be peaceful, have good connections, can't be known as aggressors.
Yeah. No, you can only live, you can only live in a society, and only societies can live with each other only by mutual consent.
Yes. Mutual consent. That's the best way to approach it. Yeah. So I'm just, I don't know. Do you have any rundown on this Security Council vote yesterday? What the U.S. is trying to pull? Because what the U.S. called. The
U.S. resolution referred to a ceasefire, and they claimed that it was a resolution for a ceasefire, but it wasn't. It was a resolution referring to a ceasefire, saying that it would be good to have a ceasefire, but doesn't call for a ceasefire. It doesn't call for an immediate ceasefire. It's just like cover, to let Israel continue, like with its Zionist, genocide there. Yeah.
You see, there's never a treaty they haven't broken. There's never a document they haven't said, oh, we didn't mean that. Here they go it again, trying to bring us some nonsense in the UN. Because I thought, well, I'm gonna tell you what, really, me being Mr. Naive at times. So maybe the U.S. has finally come to its senses and knows that Biden has to win the election. So let's see what I was trying to find it online, and I really got voted down. I said, oh, it must not have been any good anyway.
I hear Blinken came out with some sort of statement critical of the Zionists.
Blinken,
I haven't heard it yet, but
Blinken. Oh my God, some minds are just Somebody needs to give him a hug and then pinch his butt. What's wrong with you, fool? His grandma needs to give him say, Anthony, what's wrong with you? Shake him one time. I'm sorry, grandma. I'm sorry. I think, how your elder can say, what's wrong with you? Oh, I'm sorry. He's such a jerk. He's such. I mean, he's such a manipulator and such a believer in the Zionist cause.
He's such a zombie. That's what he is. He's just a zombie. He looks like a zombie too.
He kind of does look like a zombie, doesn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's kind of a weird looking dude.
You know,
Everybody,
it's some sort of mental block that he has there. That he can't see. What he's seeing. Um, you know,
yeah.
but it's it's all too much. It's all so sad. It's very saddening. Maybe not depressive. But saddening, profound. Sadness.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah. I mean,
Palestinians are so desperate now, and they probably jump on the wharf that the American military is building right now with the debris from the houses that was destroyed by the bombardments. They're building this wharf way out into the Mediterranean.
have you seen the
You
wharf?
know,
Have you seen
yeah, I saw some pictures of it. And they've got like about 500 yards already built. And
well,
if there's going to be boats there bringing some aid in, the Palestinians are going to jump at the boat, when it's going to be leaving, because they're going to want to leave, that sort of thing. So, maybe it's, being set up for that purpose. The gray zone people, think that it's set up for that purpose, to siphon off the Palestinians out of Gaza, conceded
yeah, yeah,
territory,
yeah,
to the
yeah,
occupation.
yeah.
Yeah.
Who is doing the building? U.S. military?
That's what wasn't clear. Like all of a sudden, all these bulldozers appeared, out of
Yeah,
nowhere,
yeah,
like all this
yeah, out of
construction
nowhere.
appeared
Out
that
of nowhere.
could have, lifted up, the concrete slabs lying on top of people, in the homes that were blown apart, and so, and that equipment, wasn't available at that time, now the equipment is available and they're digging up all the debris together with the buried bodies of the Palestinians,
How
dumping
sad.
it into the Mediterranean
How
and
sad.
creating,
How sad.
this road of death.
How sad. How sad. So deplorable.
Yeah,
But the baseball season must go on. The NBA All Stars have to be held. Golden
yeah,
Glove and the Academy Awards must be seen.
yeah,
Sometime, everybody, we have to just stop for a second.
yeah,
You gotta stop for a second. What the hell is going on here?
yeah. Stop the world, That's what I wrote one time.
You gotta stop
Like
for a second.
everything has got to stop. This is the most important thing.
Yeah.
And together, all, these genocides, and the civil wars, that are going on at the expense of the local population, not at the expense of the soldiers. Some of them, 10%, will get killed, and they're willing, to go ahead with it, because they're getting paid to kill. Okay. So meanwhile, in Sudan and Congo, it's the civilians who are being, killed in the crossfire. So because they happen to be, like living in the wrong place or, descended from, the wrong parents or something like that, they ended up, getting genocided. 3 genocides happening at the same time now in the world.
At the
And
same
what is the
time,
world doing? Like the world should just stop and solve this, before anything else,
stop
nothing
and
else matters but this.
yeah, yeah.
This is the
Sometimes
first
you have
thing,
to
not the
just
economy. Who cares about the
yeah,
economy?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And the system we have of capitalism, imperialism refuses.
yeah,
Those who are in it have to simply say, "We got to stop for a second." When like you come home and you see this bill not being done or something's not right, you gotta say, "Wait a minute, let's just stop and get this right."
mm,
Stop. Don't take you look at it, but yeah, this our world will not stop. The world we live in will not stop, or it does stop in some civilizations, but the civilization of the imperialist states, the collective West, it does not allow to stop because stopping means the profit will not be made.
oh yeah, wow. Like something with, terribly, like the death of money, like is more important than death of humanity.
There you go.
Wow.
But that's exactly how it is, and that's
Yeah,
why things don't stop. I was
yeah,
listen, I have a colleague who lives in a country that I'm not going to name, and I think a week or two ago, on one day, the country stopped.
Hmm.
The airport was closed. Everything was closed. Nothing was open. It stopped for a day. I said, wow,
Hmm.
I can't even imagine.
Hmm.
Just it stopped for a day. So, hey, whatever. Anyway.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. 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 Genocide together with, capitalism, killing the planet. A second reason to stop everything.
You
Even
gotta,
the third world countries, selling off, the oil, to burn off, the combustibles as fast as possible to make as much bucks as possible.
I
And
think, I think the third world, not living in the third world country, it's hard to make a suggestion. But I want to just ask the third world, the people who live within the third world who may be listening to this, how is development making your life better?
hmm,
Do you have, I'm talking about even under the system. Do you have a refrigerator full of food? Do you have 3 to 5 months of money in the bank? Are your children going to school and getting education that will make sure that they're able to survive and grow so they are better off than you are providing for them? Do you
hmm,
have a neighbor next door, a country that's trying to aggress on you, or are you aggressing on your neighbor next door? If 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 the development, if the oil discoveries, the lithium, the mining of gold and um all kind of precious metals,
diamonds,
right,
diamonds.
right, diamond, if that's not making the society
Hmm,
wealth, then you need to stop.
yeah, yeah,
Fix that because the
yeah.
development isn't helping you.
I think that
I'm
only
not
25% of those societies actually have a decent life. Everybody else is
saying
just struggling.
they're still struggling. And yet
Yeah,
all the resources are going out the country.
yeah. And the
Going,
kids
going,
who are digging, with their hands, for
oh,
cobalt,
man,
to make mobile phones with
man,
here. Yeah,
those kids' lives is
yeah,
they're so close to death and being handicapped for the rest of their lives. They're like
yeah,
they're like they're like this close to that
yeah,
because the exposure to those minerals is deadly. They're in it up. They're in it up to their knees and chest sometimes, digging out of it. It's nonsense, man. So stop. You have to stop and organize and fight back and take control of
yeah,
the land, take control of the environment. Whatever it means you
yeah,
have to do, you gotta stop. If you don't stop, it
yeah,
isn't going to stop.
yeah.
It's not.
Everybody should just stop and become an activist, a political activist.
Well,
That would
that's
do
what I'm
it.
doing. I mean,
Yeah,
and if the world is ours, that may be a choice that we have to make.
yeah. That's what revolutionary mobilization, means.
Right. Revolutionary
Be better
mobilization.
to do it in an organized fashion, but
Right.
really,
Right.
we need more people, to get involved. And
Right.
that's you, the listener here and now. I guess so. We're going to be ending soon, by not by will, but by limitation here. But this is enough for the moment. I
Yeah.
think that what we've been saying here is not to be heard, anywhere else, and that's why our work here is so necessary. So thank you for your participation, Steve and
Thank you for
Comrade.
participating. Thank you for
We
participating yourself.
we continue.
That's
What
right.
is it in Spanish? Oh no, in French, in 1968, continuons le combat. C'est qu'un début. Wait, my accent is so terrible there. Continuons le combat. C'est qu'un début. Okay, let us continue the struggle. This is only the beginning. And
There
that's,
you go.
like, even though it's not the beginning, like every sort of step is another beginning, for something else, so
That's right.
it works. Yeah.
Very good. Very good.